Hello class, I'm gonna do some demonstration here for figure drawing. Let's first start out with the concept of gesture. We've done gesture drawing before in our still life sketching, but it's really important in figure drawing because it really helps us capture the overall movement of a pose, the dynamic energy, and it also helps us just understand the form, get some lines down, figure out where those rivers of movement, those lines of actions are occurring. So for the image I have on the screen right now, which you can't see, but hopefully in the future I'll be able to get an image uh, on the recording here, but we'll see. If not, I'll post it later. Um, the movement I'm seeing the top of the head here with the spine coming down here, turning into the hips, into the leg, going straight down here to where the sort of foot is. Um, there's arc in the back here. The uh, the shoulders are angled here with the head kind of leaning where the spine is a little off-centered to the left. Probably needs to be a little higher here, and you can just adjust on the fly as need be. The arms sort of swoop up and have some graceful movement this direction. Um, the sort of hips come out this way, and then there's another arm that sort of sticks up. I'm sorry, leg that sort of sticks up this way. And so the figure is standing on balancing on one foot, and I have, with just a few lines, the basic energy of the pose here. And from here, if I have more time, let's say I'm doing a 2-minute pose, um, this would be suffice for about a 10-second pose. So that would be a 10-second pose right there. And you can put your little number here. If I was trying to get to a 30-second pose, then, I might throw a little bit more information like what's the torso doing here, right? Start to emphasize, okay, how's the small of the back turning into the hips, right? Where's the hips angling here? Um, so I might throw a circle in for the hips and then start to think about, okay, well, what are the main forms of the leg doing here? Thinking about maybe where the calf muscle is. And notice I'm drawing quite fluidly and trying to maintain the fluidity of the pose. And, I'll make edits along the way too as I am updating my image and seeing it as I go, right? The idea is not to start in an area and just slowly, meticulously make it correct. The idea is to build your figure and correct it along the way with basic lines and shapes to really get the feel of the pose and of the figure here. I'm adjusting my spine line here because it kind of arcs here with the figures arcing back, right? Notice this nice S-curve developing here now. I might add a little bit more dimension to the hands by making them into kind of like little triangle shapes, if you will, right? And now I am at a decent 2-minute, maybe, if I'm drawing really fast and in the zone, maybe I could do this in a minute and a half. Right? That's a pretty decent gesture drawing approach here. Some people like to use straight lines, more angular lines. I like to be a little bit more curved, so I can really start to understand sort of, where these lines of action and movement are occurring in my pose, and figure out the basic planes and shapes. So, now at this point, I'm at like I'd say 1 to 2 minutes would be for this pose, uh, at this level of gesture. Now, as I extend into 3 or 5 minute poses, what I'll do is I'll continue to, I will continue to correct my proportions, because I may have been a little bit off in my gesture. Probably sharpen up a little bit here. And I'll start to really refine what it is I'm seeing here. I'll probably start to block in some basic shadows, so I understand, hey, what's the light doing in here? And when I switch to blocking in these masses, these volumes of the figure and the values I'm seeing, it gives me another reference point beyond the line, right? Because I had all these lines, but now I start to have the shapes, right, that the various shadows are making. And that helps me refine the figure again, in another dimension. And I'm working quickly, looking at the model as much as possible. I'm spending very little time just looking at my drawing. I'm looking at the model a lot and making adjustments based on what I see. I'm starting to indicate individual muscles now. So I have the deltoids and the bicep moving into the forearm, making sure I get that little extra space for the wrist. That's an area that beginning figure drawings often miss. It'll just be like arm, hand, right, instead of this little bit of a wrist, which is very important to get the likeness. So I'm starting to just add some additional details here to make this look correct. And my pencil broke, so I'm going to give it another quick sharpen here. There we go, a little better. I think figure drawing is one of the, classic art traditions. If you're really interested in the figure, then I highly recommend you taking an in-person figure drawing class the first chance you get. Join us on campus. We have figure drawing classes at both San Alejo and Oceanside campus. So really good skill building when you get to work with the model in person and really study the figure through drawing. If I have my eraser here too, I can pull back some highlights back out as I'm working these volumes, adding some value here. This figure is has a very strong light source, right? It's very directional from this direction, so it's very, very dark on this opposite side here, which is nice. It's helping me focus on the basic shapes. Drawing from a picture, my goodness, is so much easier than drawing in real life. That's why doing figure drawing in person, I think, is really important, because you have to really wrestle with the figure. You learn quite a bit from studying the figure in person. So highly recommend that. So I would argue that, now I'm about at I would say probably 5 minute pose, but we could say 3 to 5 minutes now for this stage, right? And from here, I could continue to develop it. If I wanted to do a more extended pose, I could continue drawing for another 10, 15 minutes, really clarifying my proportions, really dialing where are these highlights located. I have got, where are my highlights and shadows? I've got some midtones in here where the rib cage is that I could start working. I can erase some of the lines that I no longer need that are kind of, mucking it up a little bit. I can refine my edges. I could add the details, of the individual fingers here. Which, man, hands are always a pain, but that's why we start with big shapes and work the hands together slowly into its individual digits and components, adjusting along the way. And I wish I could see a little bit closer on this. If I was not doing the demo, I would zoom in on this figure and really look at the hands a little bit closer. The basic, some strategies for drawing hands can be to add some curved lines like this, which then helps us place the different lengths of finger inside those lines, and so that can be very helpful. And then could just continue working this along as far as possible for 10 or 15 minutes. I could start to really unify my shadows so that all of my shadows have the same nice, deep shadow range here, shadow value. That can really help when you have good unified shadows throughout your entire drawing, and it will really just help unify it. So I'll often come when I'm finishing a drawing, just everywhere where I kind of blocked in kind of quickly and loosely, I'll just kind of come in and refine and spend some time cleaning this up and unifying that surface level, that surface of the graphite or drawing material onto the paper so it feels nice and unified. Continue to erase lines I don't need. Just continue to build this. And this is the basic building blocks of drawing figures, starting with the gesture, adding details, building it, fleshing it out, and constructing the figure as you go. The background here is a little darker than my highlight, so one thing sometimes I'll do is I'll just go ahead and add some value to the background, which will help to push my figure forward a little bit, and then I can kind of clean some of that up and help really push the dimensions of my figure forward here. I think I've got it a little bit narrow at the waist based on my photograph, so I might make those adjustments and continue to work it out. We all have different sort of quirks when it comes to figure drawing. Mine is always to make them too long. Some of you will make them too short or too wide or too small. Mine is always feel like I stretch mine out a little bit. And so it's just good practice to sort of see what do I do when I'm working in the figure. And then that way, with practice and with time, you can really make changes to that and really grow as a figurative artist. So I can just kind of keep working that as long as I want and get more into that what we call an extended gesture, which is more 10 to 15 minutes. All right, folks, hopefully that was a helpful way to get started, and look forward to seeing your results.